Hello, winners, and welcome to Two for the Win with your hosts, Nick and Will. Have you ever felt like, gosh, there's just all these obstacles, and I always seems like I take one step forward, two steps back? What if I told you those obstacles were actually your way forward? Intrigued? Stay tuned, because that's what we're going to chat about today. But first, be sure to subscribe, share, and follow Two for the Win on your favorite platform. We're on all of them, including YouTube. And also want to give a shout out to Nick Menard and nickmenard.com and his Amazon best-selling book, his second one, the 1% Push Legacy. So check it out on Amazon. Hello, happy Monday, Nick. How are you?
Happy Monday, Will. Hello, winners. I'm doing fantastic. Ready for a great week ahead.
Yes, for sure. So today's topic, we are going to review the book, The Obstacle is the Way. And this is written by Ryan Holiday. This is a book that's been out for a while. Another one of these books that when it came out, just really struck a chord with the public and became a international bestseller. And one of the things that I really liked about this book is that it's really rooted in Stoic philosophy. And as you know, and I've talked about a few times, about Seneca's letter 13 on groundless fears, and Seneca was a Stoic philosopher. So Ryan Holiday sources, a lot of Stoicism in his guidance in this book. But it's definitely a paradigm shifter for some people. Could be very helpful. But you want to share your high level thoughts before we jump into our quotes and quips?
Yeah, what I like about the book personally, I mean, whatever you say, it's totally accurate, of course. What I really like is the fact how to turn the negative into a positive. So how to turn something that it's a challenge or an obstacle in this case, and make it something that make you better and actually improve yourself for the future. So it's a great way to think positive instead of thinking negative, or like we like to say, the ladder of accountability: be a victor instead of a victim.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, this is a good one. I'm looking forward to doing this one, but let's jump into our favorite segment, quotes and
Quotes and
quips.
quips.
There we go. Gotta love it. All right. So, this one is actually from Marcus Aurelius, from his book Meditations, which I have. Yep, there it is. Look at this. Check this out. Marcus Aurelius
There we go.
Meditations. So Marcus Aurelius is famously known as being a Roman emperor, but what some people may not know is he was also a Stoic philosopher. And so the quote from Marcus Aurelius in his book Meditations is, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Thoughts on that
Mm,
one?
yeah, that's philosophic, I would say. So I just like the fact that it, it's a lot of words to just say. For me, I like to keep saying things simple. You know me, everybody knows me now by now. But it's literally look past what's just in front of your eyes and realize that whatever is there in between is just something to try to stop you from your goal. And you have two options. You have the option to say, it's too difficult. I'm quitting. We don't like to admit it, but it's quitting. Or, you know what? I look past that. You know, I look past the obstacles and I actually will reach it. And by reaching it, I'm going to learn something. And I will be able to, next time something like that happen, I will have a smile because I already have the answer of how to go against that challenge or the obstacle. So that's the way I think when I listen to that quote.
Yeah, no, spot on. And this quote it's basically the author Ryan Holiday, paraphrases a quote of Marcus Aurelius in the book, which is one of the reasons why I thought it'd be a good one to share with our winners. But when you think about an obstacle, so let's say you're in sales and you really are trying to get this um, prospect to buy, and you're trying to earn a certain commission and maybe exceed a quota. Well, there's a lot of ways you can look at it, but one way to look at it is, okay, this prospect is my obstacle keeping me from this added commission, keeping me from exceeding my quota. So turning this prospect into a client, that that's turning the obstacle into the way forward. Now, we all know that sometimes when client or prospects say no, they mean no, for whatever reason. It doesn't change the fact that getting to converting a prospect into a client, maybe a different one, is still the way forward. And it touches on to what you said. It's about learning, right? So it's about learning, okay, why wasn't I able to influence this prospect to buy? And as you do that kind of post-mortem, if you will, it'll probably illuminate some things that you could do differently to your earlier point again when you face a similar situation going forward. Same thing if you're in any kind of endeavor. If you have a key stakeholder you're trying to influence and they're just difficult to work with, the obstacle is the way. So can you find different ways to find common ground to eventually turn them from an adversary to an advocate, or again, doing that post-mortem, maybe I should have framed things differently. Maybe I need to look at things a little differently from their point of view. How do you work with somebody who just may be very difficult to work with? There's still a way. They still make decisions. They don't say no to everything. So it's finding out that, and it's almost like playing a game. It's like a puzzle piece, if you will. So anyway, those are some thoughts on that one, because
Yeah.
as you can tell, it's tapping into my memory of the book. It's been a while since I read the book, but it helped reframe my paradigm and how I thought about things in the past, where sometimes I was like, "Oh, blah, 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 blah," and, and really it's like, "No, how do I this is the way forward." So it's just more, I need to change, or I need to do something differently so that can make it happen.
Yeah, and to piggyback on what you say, in sales, no today doesn't mean no tomorrow. So that's number one. Number two, when you are doing anything in life, it's a constant training. So you get better as much as you do them. So if you go into a client that you can, or a prospect you cannot close, well, you get closer to the yes. The amount of no gets you closer to the yes. We all know that. It's Kiyosaki, I think, was the one saying that in Rich Dad Poor Dad as well. um, but very important to understand that it's a training, and you get better and better in the counter argument, or in the way to go from a no to a yes. And then maybe client prospect A today will help you with prospect B tomorrow. Because tomorrow you may have this similar interaction, but you feel more confident because you just went through it, and the way you will answer will get you there. And then guess what? You can go back to prospect one or prospect A, and you will be able to then get somewhere further next time, because you will portray confidence. You will have a better way to go against what the client is telling you and get the deal done. And so constant practice, constant practice. If you are in service, it's the same thing. So don't take a no as a no forever. It's a no right now, and it's a way to get better.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Well said on that. So the other thing is our quip. So as you know, we like to have a little levity on this, and this one is from Haruki Murakami. So that's a mouthful, but Maruki is the author of what I talk about when I talk about running. But I like this one, so I'm curious about your thoughts. His quip is, "Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional."
Ooh, yeah, no, I really like that. I really like that. So the difference between pain and suffering, it's what's all about, in this case. And I like to think sport. And people who know me, or people who read my book, they know the analogy about sport comes often. So in sport, there is a saying like, you can play hurt, but you cannot play injured. All right. So you will go through pain, but the way you handle it will dictate your power of the mind. So we know we talk a lot about growth mindset and fixed mindset. You will have to power through pain in sport. In business, you will need to power through obstacles, and that's the way I look at the difference between sport and business. But it's so true. Rarely in any sport you can go all season long, like, playing hard and not have any kind of pain. But until it's an injuries that you need to really rest and put yourself on the side, when you hurt or it's a pain, you have to push through. And it's the same in business. Until you have something that you really legally or when you have a clear no multi times and you feel like you can do more damage than good, until then you have a way to try to convince the person or to show the person why they made a mistake by not going with your product. So that's the way I think when I listen to the quote. But I really liked it.
Yeah, no, it's a good one, and I loved your thoughts on it. I think, very similar, I don't wanna belabor the point, but I think, we all are going to experience pain. Could be physical pain, could be mental pain. Growth is painful. Remember as a kid when you're growing and your bones would
Mhm.
hurt a little bit, right? Like, and I remember that when it was achy, you go through these growth spurts and stuff, and you're far taller than me, so I can only imagine, like, some of your growth spurts and what you went through. So there's always pain, but to suffer in my mind is to dwell on the pain versus to acknowledge the pain. Like, I'm not saying if you're going through a growth spurt, you're going to feel lovely, or I'm not saying if you're going through some mental anguish, you're going to be everything is happy like the Lego guy. It can be painful, but suffering is dwelling on that pain. And I think most of our pain for most of us does not require suffering, right? Like, if you were physically in a situation where it was really rough day after day after day after day, yeah, that's suffering. Like that's tough. But really more often than not, suffering is a mental state. And a lot of our pain is temporary, and a lot of it also can be reframed, and how you think about it, just like going back to that quote, like, "The obstacle is the way." You could look at somebody who is not partnering well with you, look at that prospect who's not buying what you're selling, look at your partner who's, just things aren't going the right way, and you can either dwell on what's working or not working, excuse me, or you can dwell on, "How do I make it better?" And I think that's the thing with suffering for me anyway, it's like suffering for most of us, most of the time, can be avoided just by, reframing how you're thinking about it.
Very well said about the mind piece. I really love when you say that because it's so true. And think about how much sweeter the success will be when you didn't give up on challenges or on pain or suffering phase. And that's why you see in sport again. Look at the Olympics, look at any sports. When you hear the story of someone like been through so much and then win gold in the Olympics, for example, you see the feeling and the emotion coming through because you remember all the place you've been through, all the dark place you've been through, but you push through and you believe in yourself and you win compared to someone who get gold but never been through the kind of things that the other person been through. The level of feelings you can see proud and pride and of course happiness, but you will see the difference is very very clear when you've been through all those steps and actually push through where majority of people would give up. So
Yeah.
definitely think about the end results. Think about what I will when I will be successful instead of if I'm being successful, but when I will be successful, this will be so much sweeter because I didn't give up by listening to all those negative people in some cases.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like, really well said, and I think it ties into we can start talking a little bit more now about the book, "The
Mhm.
Obstacle is the Way" by Ryan Holiday, and what you basically were just talking about was the perception, right? It's the perception of that, and, how you look at the obstacle, what kind of emotion distorts perception, what's the difference between reacting versus responding? Curious on your thoughts on that
Mm.
one. Like, how would you frame it for our winners, the difference between reacting and responding?
Yeah, I mean, when you hear something that you may disagree about, and I'm guilty of that a lot of time because my nonverbal is so freaking huge. But you know, you can pose. It's what I always said. When you if you react directly, the reaction will be your emotional, and what I feel between the difference between reacting and responding will be you take a step back, you think about it, maybe you sleep on it, and then the day after you will be able to come with like composure and actually how to turn the challenge into something positive by providing some answer or some ways to turn the negative into positive, while the reaction will probably be the way I feel, that will going to be a lot more emotional. And we know that emotional reaction are not usually the best one, and I'm guilty of that, and I have no problem sharing that. And I will, it's going to be an eternal work on that for me, because I'm an emotional person. But I think the emotion should be put aside a little bit longer before you are able to answer. But that's the way I see it. But tell us the way you think about responding and reacting.
No, I think you nailed it. I think, you wanna separate facts from feelings. I think you want to pause before reacting, try to take a beat, take a breath, and then, ask. And this is kinda like the higher order level thinking about it, and this is how it aligns with stoicism. Ask, "What is this teaching me?" So,
I love that.
not always easy to do. Like, I've been in situations where somebody will say something to me and it gets me going. And even though I try to work on a lot of things like you had mentioned as well, just trying to take a beat sometimes, there's sometimes where I don't, right? But I think that's the lesson, right? Like, could I take a beat and master my own emotions? Because that's the other thing. Like, people don't make you feel a certain way. You choose to feel a certain way by how they act. And if you really want to, in my opinion, one of the great ways to demonstrate mental fortitude is, can you stay calm under pressure? Can you stay calm when somebody else is heated? Um, and it doesn't mean that you're just giving everybody a hug or anything like that, or metaphorical hug. I'm not talking about it, but can you master your emotions in those intense moments? And I think most of us as humans, there's probably times where we say no, we didn't, but that's the aspiration, right? Because if you can master your emotions, then really, um, you hold control over anything. Nobody's going to control how you feel because you choose it. So I really
And we
like
know
that.
more and more. Yeah,
Oh, go
and
ahead.
we know more and more about the importance of doing that, and the people who actually care for that are so much better. And I have one example. Again, it's about sport, but if you follow the NBA, Victor Wembanyama he went last summer. He's 21 years old or 22 years old, not even, and he went last year for a month and a half in Asia with the monk, to just learn how to deal with his emotion when he's, because he's someone who always won everything in his life, and then he got to the San Antonio Spurs as a first draft pick, and he lost tons of game the first 2 years, of course, because they don't have the player to compete. But he's a top player worldwide, so he went there literally to learn how to dim his frustration. And we can see that he's still not there 100%. Like, definitely, if you watch the All Star game a few weeks back, but he's so much better to analyzing like the to trust the process and analyzing the steps and understanding that not the title will not come directly, but by doing the right thing each and every day, and by helping his teammate doing the right thing each and every day. And I think it says a lot when you have someone willing to put his time and energy and his money in his mouth in order to be able to improve on the emotional aspect of it. And I believe that me first, we can all learn how to get better about managing your emotions. But it's so powerful, and this book is fantastic to help with that. And other books also about emotional, way to handle emotions. So definitely 100% in agreement with that.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. And I do think, just as a side note, since you brought up Victor Wembanyama, probably one of the better, more competitive All-Star games we had in a while, and that's because he went full bolt from the tip of the game, and he set the tone. And, so
Hmm.
yeah, so another aspect of that. Alright, the other part is, so perception plays a big role, right? How you view things, your paradigm and how
Hmm.
you see it, and how you choose to respond to it. The second part that Ryan Holiday talks about in The Obstacle is the Way really comes down to action, and it's using the obstacles as leverage. So, you can think about things like, why do most people quit here? Or how do high performers use constraints creatively? But a question I wanted to get your thoughts on from the book, like, what's a time a setback forced innovation? Because I know you've had several in a lot of different areas, but if you want to take a beat and think about that one, but what's a time a setback forced innovation for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can talk about my experience moving from Belgium to the US. I had a lot of setback at that time that a lot of people from Belgium were like, come back, like you have a life here, you have an apartment, why worrying about making it American dreams that nobody believed in it? And I had to innovate my way out of my what I thought was gonna happen when I moved to the US. Because what I thought was gonna happen, I will move to the US, I will get into a university, be an assistant coach, makes tons of money, and doing the thing I like and be around sport athletes all the time. And I realized very quickly that assistant coach in basketball, unless you are in a top 10 university in college, they don't get paid. They get paid peanuts and they have no life because they spend the whole entire year, 11 months out of 12 at the university. They sleep there, they eat there. I mean, they don't have a life. And that's not my version of happiness. And so I realized I need to find another way. And I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm like, I'm going to work for myself. And so it was very hard learning the language and understanding everything. And so I had to do something I promised myself I will never do again is being an employee. And I just swallow my pride and I went to work at the bank. And then the bank get me somewhere else, they get me somewhere else, and then I can actually work my way into entrepreneurship on the side, but I needed to pay the bills like everybody else.
Mhm,
And so
mhm,
I needed to pivot at some point and, like I said, swallow my pride and do something I didn't want to do. I didn't do for 12 years back in Belgium and never anticipate going back to. But it helped me and improve my English, meet amazing people like yourself, be able to actually understand better the mentality here in US compared to Europe and understand how business work here because it's also different than in Europe. And so the innovation of pivoting for me it was a pivot to get back a step back to where I thought I was in order to do two step forward. And so that's for me the innovation that I had to do. But everybody have different life story and experience. But that's something based on what you said. It's literally the first thing that came to my mind.
no, it's powerful. And I mean, you talk about some major philosophical shifts that you had to innovate on or adjust to based on that, but look at how it came out the other side. So well done on your part. I think, when it comes to the part about action in this book, it's really following a framework of identify what's within your control, stay consistent despite comfort, and this is going to resonate with maybe a recent Amazon best-selling book. Take small, disciplined action. I don't know about you. That sounds a little bit like the 1% push, does it not?
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
There we go. So make sure you check out the 1% Push Legacy by best-selling author Nick Menard if you haven't yet. And right there, you can see it right in the book with Ryan Holiday as well. All right, the third part to close us out. So you have perception in how you view it. You're going to take action, small disciplined action over time compounds, and you get exponential results out of that. The third part really comes down to will, and not my name, the actual will with 2 L's. And it's about endurance beating intensity. So thinking about, how does ego make obstacles worse? What separates temporary pain from permanent failure? But the question I want to pose you, my friend, is why is resilience more valuable than motivation? I know you got thoughts on that one. Let's hear them.
Well, to be honest, I will be totally honest, alive here on the episode. I I don't understand very well the difference between the two as a French first French language, like having resilience and motivation. You Resilience to me, if I try to break it down, being resilient is a never give up mentality. but you
Right.
need to have the motivation in order to be able to do that, because without motivation you cannot. So it's not the same for me, but you cannot have, it's very hard to have one without the other. So a motivation, you may not have steps to achieve something. Motivation you need in order to never give up. And resilience is, you know what the end point is, and you will need to go those steps in order to achieve whatever your goal is. And whatever comes in between, all the obstacles that's in the book, you actually are not going to give up, and you're going to look forward at the end results. And that's what I always said. When you drive a car and you have 100 different obstacles in front of you, if you look at the obstacles while driving, guess what? The car will go on it. You will crash. If you look at the end, after all the obstacles where you need to get, the chance that you actually get there is a lot higher, because the focus is at the end road. And so it's the same thing here. The resilience means you do not give up, and you gonna face every obstacles. It's first, get help from peers, from partner, from friends, whatever it is, but you're not gonna give up, and you're gonna learn each step of the way, thanks to the motivation. But if you only have the motivation but not roadmap, I'm not sure how you're gonna get there. And so I think the motivation is need for resilience, but only motivation, you will miss the steps that are needed in your roadmap. That's the way I look at it. But please tell me if I'm completely off or if I'm right.
No, 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 it's not about being off. I totally get it. I think for me, what ran through my mind was the phrase, for whatever reason, I don't know why this jumped in my head, but it did. Do it anyway. And where my mind started to drift, it was like working out. So like there's
Mhm.
time, like I'm motivated to get into better shape. Sometimes that level of motivation is very different depending on the time of the day or how I'm feeling and stuff like that. But in my mind, I there's times, and I need to make more times like these, but there's times where I'm like, the last thing I wanna do is 25 minutes of barbell or dumbbell curls. But I know there's times where I look at that and I got every voice in my head saying, "Nah, you could take this day off," or, "Nah, you could do some other things, instead of doing the lifting." And there's been moments where I just walked up, grabbed the dumbbell, and just started. And then from there, the workout happened. And so for me, that's where, like, I think resilience can maybe overcome when you don't have the motivation. We all have times where we're like, "Forget this. I just don't feel like doing X, whatever X is," but you do it anyway, and it's because it's principle based, so you may not be all, like, fired up to do it, but it's the thing to do, and it's the thing that's gonna move you forward, and you do it anyway, and candidly, for me, that's an area I need to continue to cultivate because I can absolutely point, especially when it comes to working out, how many times I succumbed where my motivation wasn't strong enough to propel me forward, and I didn't have the resilience to move forward, but there were times where I did, and those are the times I need to nurture more often than not, especially doing something that I don't love to work out. Like I even
No.
when I played sports, I didn't love working out. I love practicing. I love playing the games, but I didn't love working out. So that's always going to be one that's until I shift my mindset about it, I need to act more on my resilience.
I love that. Hey, big shout out to Shay, your sister-in-law, because she posts every
Yeah.
day about the motivation for the gym, and then she said something that's very true the other day. The best feeling in the world is when you didn't want to go to the gym and you actually go, and when you come back from the gym when you didn't have any motivation, that's the best feeling of the world, because you did it, you home after that, but you actually didn't give up on the plan of the day, and you did it. And you motivates me a couple of times actually this week, um, while I was literally on meetings and I have a break for 30 minutes and I'm like, "Ah, I don't want to get up." And then I saw your post and I'm like, you know what? Just get up and do something about this. And I just took some dumbbells and I started working out. So shoot out to Shay.
Awesome. There we go. Shout out to Shay. Yeah, that's good. Although I have to be a little snarky. She sometimes shows like takes a picture of her shoes when she's on, I don't know if it's like the elliptical machine or whatever. And I'm like, you need to buy new shoes. Like, what's with these dirty-ish shoes?
Oh boy. It went was positive, and you can turn something positive into negative. Oh, it's fun.
Tough love. I call it tough love. Yeah, it's all good. No, that's awesome. All right. So there you have it, winners. Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way. Much more than just a philosophical book. It's really a roadmap, not only for life, but for business. Highly recommend it. So check it out. Also, please check out The 1% Push Legacy by Nick Menard. And please be sure to follow, subscribe. You're on all the platforms. Don't miss an episode on Two for the Win. We have a lot of great guests, a lot of different things that we're talking about that hopefully you can glean at least one nugget and apply it in your everyday life. So that'll do it for this Monday, winners. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Bye, winners.